Admiral stood before the massive holographic display in the command center of the Galactic Council's flagship, the Dominion's Edge. The three-dimensional map showed the spiral arm of the galaxy where a small, blue-green world orbited an unremarkable yellow star. Earth, the third planet of a system the locals called Sol. Counselor's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The reconnaissance data confirms our initial assessment. The species calls itself human, and they appear to be in their technological infancy. No faster-than-light travel, no energy shields, no antimatter weapons. They still use chemical propulsion for their primitive spacecraft. The towering counselor examined the data streams flowing across multiple screens. His compound eyes reflected the blue glow as he processed information at superhuman speeds. How many of them are there, Admiral? Approximately 8 billion individuals scattered across their single world, replied, her reptilian features twisting into what passed for a smile among her species. They're divided into hundreds of separate political entities, constantly warring among themselves. Their largest conflicts involve perhaps millions of soldiers at most. Counselor Santeni twitched with amusement. Millions? The smallest patrol fleet in our Navy contains more warriors than their entire species has ever fielded in battle. He turned to address the assembled military commanders and council representatives. And yet, these primitives dare to venture beyond their atmosphere. They've established small outposts on their moon and sent robotic probes to other worlds in their system. General X, a massive bear-like creature from the militant hegemony, growled his agreement. My intelligence division confirms they pose no military threat whatsoever. Their most advanced weapons are barely capable of destroying city-sized areas. We've seen children's toys with more destructive potential. The assembled leaders of the Galactic Council's military forces shared what passed for laughter among their various species. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained order across 47 star systems, bringing civilization to countless primitive worlds. Earth would simply be another easy conquest in their long history of expansion. What strategic value does this world hold? Asked Commander Ra, her crystalline form refracting the light into prismatic patterns. Her species, the valued efficiency above all else. Admiral activated a new holographic display showing Earth's geological composition. The planet is remarkably resource-rich. Vast oceans of water, abundant minerals, and a surprisingly stable ecosystem. The humans have barely scratched the surface of their world's potential. Our preliminary estimates suggest enough raw materials to fuel our expansion for the next 5 centuries. And the location, added Counselor, places it at a strategic junction between the Outer Rim territories and the core worlds, a perfect staging ground for future conquests. The military commanders nodded their various heads, appendages, and sensory organs in agreement. It seemed almost too easy. There is one curious anomaly in our data, reported Science Officer La, an ethereal being whose gaseous form shifted colors as she spoke. The humans show unusual adaptability to diverse environments on their world. They inhabit regions from frozen polar wastes to scorching deserts, from sea level to high mountain peaks. Most species we encounter are adapted to much narrower environmental ranges. General X dismissed this with a wave of his massive paw. Adaptability means nothing without proper weapons or technology. A clever insect is still just an insect. Admiral began outlining the invasion strategy. Phase 1 will involve a demonstration of our superior technology. We'll disable their primitive communication networks and eliminate any military installations that might pose even a minimal threat. This should convince their leaders to surrender quickly. How long do you estimate the entire operation will take? Asked Counselor. No more than 72 of their planetary rotations, replied confidently. Most of that time will be spent on the occupation and resource extraction setup. The actual conquest should be complete within the first day. The assembled council members were pleased with this efficiency. Quick conquests meant minimal resource expenditure and faster returns on their investment. One more thing, Science Officer La interjected. Our long-range sensors have detected some unusual energy signatures from their world. Nothing that appears to be advanced technology, but there are patterns we haven't seen before. Probably just their primitive nuclear technology, General X scoffed. We detected similar signatures from the system before we conquered it. Splitting atoms is one of the first dangerous technologies most species develop before destroying themselves or achieving true advancement. Admiral nodded. Our invasion fleet will consist of 300 vessels, including 50 heavy cruisers, 100 destroyers, and the rest support ships. More than sufficient to handle any surprises these humans might attempt. When do we begin? Asked Counselor. The fleet assembles at Nexus Station in 10 standard cycles. From there, it's a short jump to the Sol system. Eyes gleamed with anticipation. The humans won't even see us coming until we're already in their system. As the meeting concluded, and the various council members dispersed to their ships and stations, none of them noticed the subtle changes in Science Officer La's gaseous form. Her colors had shifted to darker, more troubled hues. The energy signatures from Earth weren't matching anything in the Council's vast databases of conquered civilizations. 3 days later, the invasion fleet gathered at Nexus Station, a massive ring-shaped structure that served as one of the Council's primary military staging areas. Ships from dozens of species formed precise formations in the cold vacuum of space. Weapon systems that could reduce planets to molten slag hummed with barely contained energy. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, watching as the final preparations were completed. Navigation, set course for the Sol system, maximum hyperspace velocity. Course laid in, Admiral, reported the navigation officer. Fleet Command, this is Admiral. All vessels prepare for hyperspace jump on my mark. She paused, savoring the moment. Another primitive world would soon bow before the might of the Galactic Council. Execute jump. The space around Nexus Station exploded into brilliant streaks of light as 300 warships vanished into hyperspace, beginning their journey toward what they believed would be an easy conquest. They had no way of knowing that their reconnaissance probes had only observed Earth during peacetime. They had studied human cities, farms, and the occasional military parade. They had human technology and found it primitive by their standards. They had counted human populations and dismissed them as insignificant. What they had not observed was human history. They had not witnessed the beaches of Normandy, where ordinary men charged into certain death to defeat tyranny. They had not seen Stalingrad, where a city became a meat grinder that consumed entire armies. They had not studied the Spartan stand at Thermopylae or the desperate defense of the Alamo. They had not learned about human stubbornness, human ingenuity under pressure, or the terrifying lengths to which humans would go when their homes and families were threatened. Most critically, they had not understood that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and better armed than they were. The invasion fleet streaked through hyperspace toward Earth, their crews confident in their overwhelming technological superiority. Admiral reviewed casualty projections that estimated losses in the dozens for the entire campaign. Behind them at Nexus Station, Science Officer Law continued analyzing the strange energy patterns from Earth. Deep in the station's research facilities, surrounded by the most advanced analytical equipment in the galaxy, she was beginning to piece together a terrifying picture. The energy signatures weren't from nuclear technology at all. They were from something far more dangerous. Something that had never been seen in the galaxy before, in all the thousands of civilizations the Council had encountered and conquered. The signatures were from a species that had weaponized creativity itself. While the Council's vast databases contained detailed information on plasma cannons, antimatter bombs, and gravitational weapons, they had no reference points for creatures that could turn anything into a weapon. Their computers could analyze energy-based armaments and kinetic projectiles, but they had no way to human ingenuity. How do you catalog the mind that looks at an airplane and sees a guided missile? How do you quantify the creativity that turns a pressure cooker into a bomb, or a truck into an instrument of destruction? How do you prepare for a species that has spent turning farming tools into weapons of war? The Council's reconnaissance had observed human agriculture, but they had not understood that the same species that had learned to cultivate crops had also learned to cultivate death on an industrial scale. They had seen human cities, but they had not grasped that these were the products of creatures who had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars against their own kind. They had counted 8 billion humans and dismissed them as insignificant. They had not realized they were about to encounter 8 billion apex predators, whose entire evolutionary history had prepared them for exactly this moment. The invasion fleet continued its journey through hyperspace, ETA to Earth, 18 standard hours. In the command centers and crew quarters of 300 warships, alien warriors prepared for what they believed would be a simple conquest operation. On Earth, early warning systems designed to detect incoming asteroids began registering unusual readings in deep space. In facilities hidden beneath mountains and scattered across remote locations, humans who had spent decades preparing for theoretical threats began activating protocols that had never been tested under real conditions. The universe was about to witness the biggest error in military history. And it all began with a single, catastrophic misunderstanding of what humans actually were. The Council saw farmers, artists, and merchants living on a resource-rich world. What they were about to encounter were the descendants of creatures who had hunted woolly mammoths with pointed sticks, who had crossed frozen land bridges to claim new continents, who had looked up at the stars and decided they belonged there too. They were about to learn that humans didn't just inhabit Earth. They had conquered it. And they were very, very good at conquering things. The invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system right on schedule. Admiral watched as her sensors began mapping the human system's defenses. A few satellites, some primitive space stations, and what appeared to be a handful of exploration vessels. Pathetic, she muttered, not knowing that she had just sealed the fate of the Galactic Council's military expansion forever. The war for Earth was about to begin, and the universe would never be the same. The first sign that something was wrong came 18 minutes after the Galactic Council's invasion fleet materialized at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral was reviewing the tactical display when her communications officer suddenly straightened in alarm. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the third planet." "Already? How did they detect us so quickly?" frowned. The fleet had dropped out of hyperspace beyond the orbit of the outermost planet. Their cloaking technology should have rendered them invisible to the humans' primitive sensors. "The transmission is unusual, Admiral. It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously, including several we didn't know they possessed." "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be military dress. Behind him, banks of advanced-looking equipment hummed with activity. The quality of the transmission was far better than their reconnaissance had suggested was possible. "Unknown fleet," the human said in a calm, measured voice. "You have entered the Sol system without authorization. You have 30 minutes to state your intentions and begin immediate withdrawal, or you will be considered hostile." General X burst into laughter, his massive frame shaking. Did that primitive just issue us an ultimatum? With what army? But Admiral was studying the human's face more carefully. She had seen that expression before, in her early days as a junior officer during the Council's war with the hegemony of free worlds. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what they were doing and was completely prepared for the consequences. "Open a channel," she ordered. "This is Admiral of the Galactic Council. Your world has been selected for integration into our civilization. Surrender immediately, and your species will be treated with appropriate consideration. Resist and face the consequences." The human's expression didn't change. "Admiral, I am General Martinez of the Terran Defense Command. You have 29 minutes to begin withdrawal. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. General X was still chuckling. "Terran Defense Command, they have a defense command. What do they defend with, sharp sticks?" But Science Officer La was frantically analyzing the data from the transmission. "Admiral, there are several concerning anomalies in what we just observed." "Such as?" "The transmission quality suggests communications technology far more advanced than our reconnaissance indicated. More importantly, the energy signatures I've been tracking have increased exponentially since our arrival. And Admiral," she paused, her gaseous form shifting to deep purple, "I'm detecting similar signatures throughout this system." "Explain." "There are artificial structures everywhere, Admiral. Not just around the third planet. I'm reading installations on the fourth planet, several moons, and what appears to be a network of automated platforms throughout the asteroid belt." Admiral felt the first stirrings of unease. "How many installations?" "Thousands, Admiral, possibly tens of thousands." "That's impossible. Our reconnaissance showed a primitive species barely capable of reaching their moon." Admiral, the tactical officer interrupted, I'm detecting energy buildups throughout the system, multiple sources, all increasing in intensity. Show me. The holographic display shifted to show the entire Sol system. What had appeared empty during their approach was now lighting up like a festival display. Energy signatures blazed to life on planets, moons, asteroids, and in apparently empty space. By the void, General X whispered, how many weapons are they powering up? Science Officer La checked her readings 3 times before answering. Approximately 12,000 discrete energy sources, General, and the number is still climbing. Admiral stared at the display in growing horror. This is impossible. Our reconnaissance was thorough. We observed this system for months. Admiral, La said quietly, I believe our reconnaissance observed only what the humans wanted us to observe. The implications of that statement hit the bridge like a physical blow. A species advanced enough to fool Council reconnaissance technology was advanced enough to pose a real threat. Time to ultimatum expiration, asked. 14 minutes, Admiral. Fleet order, all ships to yellow alert. Raise shields and charge primary weapons. Prepare for possible hostile action. As the order went out across the invasion fleet, the humans were making their own preparations. Deep beneath the Cheyenne Mountain complex in Colorado, General Martinez stood before a display that showed the position of every Council ship in real time. The humans had been tracking the alien fleet since it first entered hyperspace 3 systems away. General, all defense platforms are online and fully charged, reported Colonel from her position at the tactical console. Lunar installations report ready. Mars defense grid is operational. Asteroid belt weapon platforms are armed and awaiting orders. And the fleet. The Pacific and Atlantic squadrons are in position. Captain reports the stealth carriers are undetected at optimal firing positions. General Martinez nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this day for 50 years, ever since the first deep space monitoring stations had detected signs of a vast galactic civilization. The decision had been made early on. If they were discovered before they were ready, they would make sure the discoverers regretted it. How long until the antimatter mines are in position? He asked. 37 minutes, General. The robotic deployment vessels launched the moment the enemy fleet was detected. And our backup plans? Colonel smiled grimly. Operation Broken Arrow is ready for implementation. Every major population center has been evacuated to the underground facilities. If they try to target our cities, they'll find them empty. The kinetic bombardment satellites. Positioned and ready, sir. We can drop tungsten rods on any point of their fleet within minutes of target acquisition. General Martinez looked around the command center. 50 years of secret preparation, hidden behind a carefully constructed facade of primitive technology. Humans had learned long ago that the best way to survive in a dangerous galaxy was to appear harmless while preparing for war. Time to ultimatum. 6 minutes, sir. Open a channel to all defense platforms. Full authorization codes. The communication system activated, connecting the command center to thousands of hidden installations throughout the Sol system. This is General Martinez with Priority Alpha authentication. The moment has come. All units, this is not a drill. Defend Terra, defend humanity, make them regret coming here. Acknowledgements came back from across the system. Human voices from the Moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, and a dozen other locations where humanity had quietly established military installations while pretending to be a primitive, single-planet species. On the bridge of the Dominion's edge, the countdown to the human ultimatum reached its final minute. Admiral, the communications officer reported, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. General Martinez appeared on screen again, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him stood dozens of humans in military uniforms representing what appeared to be a sophisticated command structure. Admiral, your time has expired. You were warned. What happens next is on your heads. The transmission ended. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, I'm detecting massive energy spikes throughout the system. Whatever they're powering up, they're doing it now. Admiral made the decision that would be studied in military academies for the next 1,000 years. All ships, open fire, target the third planet's major population centers, end this quickly. 300 Galactic Council warships unleashed their opening salvo. Plasma bolts that could melt mountains streaked toward Earth at significant fractions of light speed. They never reached their target. The space between the Council fleet and Earth suddenly blazed with defensive fire. Invisible until they activated, thousands of weapon platforms revealed themselves throughout the Sol system. Advanced particle beams and plasma interceptors destroyed the incoming fire in brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness. But the humans weren't content with just defense. From hidden installations on Luna, massive fired tungsten projectiles at 3% of light speed. From Mars, antimatter missiles launched in waves. From the asteroid belt, a network of kinetic bombardment platforms began hurling metal asteroids at the invasion fleet. But the most devastating surprise came from Earth itself. The planet's surface, which had appeared to contain only primitive cities and farmland, suddenly revealed its true nature. Massive gun emplacements rose from concealed positions. Energy weapons that rivaled anything in the Council's arsenal fired in coordinated salvos. And from orbiting platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites, humanity's secret space navy. Admiral watched in horror as her tactical display lit up with thousands of human weapon signatures. "This is impossible," she whispered. "They're primitives." "Admiral," her tactical officer called out, "we're taking heavy fire. The Vengeance of Sorrow reports critical damage. The Blade of Justice has lost main engines. Return fire all weapons." The Council fleet fought back with everything they had, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Worse, they were fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this exact scenario for decades. "Admiral," Science Officer La reported, "I'm detecting incoming objects from the outer system. They appear to be moving at significant fractions of light speed." "What kind of objects?" "Metallic, Admiral, very large, and there are hundreds of them." General X studied his own sensor readings. "Those aren't missiles, they're asteroids. Are they throwing rocks at us?" The first wave of kinetic impactors hit the Council fleet like the fist of an angry god. Asteroids that had been fitted with guidance systems and fusion drives smashed into Council ships with the force of nuclear weapons. Ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. But even as his fleet took devastating losses, Admiral was beginning to understand the true scope of their error. "La," she called out over the sound of emergency alarms, "reanalyze everything. How advanced are these humans really?" The gaseous science officer worked frantically at her station, while plasma fire streaked past the ship's windows. "Admiral, based on what I'm observing, their technology is at least equivalent to our own, possibly superior in some areas." "How is that possible?" "They've been hiding, Admiral. Everything we observed was carefully staged to make us underestimate them. Their real cities are underground. Their real weapons were concealed. Their real fleet was cloaked." Another wave of kinetic impactors crashed into the Council formation, and Admiral watched 3 more of her heavy cruisers disappear from the tactical display. "How many ships have we lost?" 47 destroyed, Admiral. Another 63 with significant damage. In less than an hour of combat, the humans had destroyed or crippled more than a third of the invasion fleet. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." General Martinez appeared on screen again, and this time he was clearly aboard a military vessel. Through the windows behind him, the wreckage of Council ships could be seen burning in space. "Admiral, I'm giving you one final opportunity. Surrender now, and we'll allow your surviving ships to withdraw. Continue fighting, and we'll destroy every last one of you." Admiral looked around her bridge. Half her crew was dead or wounded. Her fleet was in ruins, and the humans were still revealing new weapon systems with every passing minute. But more terrifying than their technology was something else she was beginning to understand. The humans weren't just defending their world. They were enjoying it. She had spent her career fighting various species across the galaxy. She had seen desperation, fear, and determination. But she had never seen anything like the cold, calculating joy with which the humans were dismantling her fleet. These weren't primitives fighting for survival. These were apex predators who had been waiting their entire lives for something worthy of hunting. And they had found it. "Admiral," General X said quietly, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal." Admiral looked at her tactical display one more time. The Council fleet was surrounded and facing an enemy that had prepared for this moment for decades. But the worst part was the growing realization that this wasn't even humanity's full strength. They had revealed just enough to destroy the invasion fleet. How much more were they still hiding? "Open a channel to the human commander," she said finally. It was time to learn just how badly the Galactic Council had miscalculated. Admiral's transmission reached General Martinez as debris from the Council cruiser Eternal Dominion drifted past the command ship's viewport. The alien Admiral's reptilian features were haggard, her once-proud posture now slumped in defeat. "General Martinez," she began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute defeat. The Galactic Council formally requests terms for cessation of hostilities." General Martinez studied the alien commander for a long moment before responding. "Admiral, you declared war on humanity. You came here to conquer our world and enslave our people. Now you want to negotiate." "Yes," replied quietly. "We have clearly miscalculated the situation." "Miscalculated." Martinez let the word hang in the space between them. "Admiral, let me explain something to you about humans. We don't just miscalculate. We plan, we prepare. And when someone threatens our home, we respond with overwhelming force." Behind General Martinez, Colonel approached with a data pad. "Sir, final casualty reports from the fleet action." Martinez reviewed the numbers without breaking eye contact with the alien admiral. "Admiral, in the past 4 hours, your invasion force has lost 193 ships. Your casualties number in the hundreds of thousands. Human losses," he paused. 17 personnel, 12 from a single weapon platform that suffered a direct hit. The alien admiral's mandibles clicked in what appeared to be shock. That's impossible. "You attacked a species that has spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of warfare, Admiral. You brought 300 ships to fight a civilization that has been preparing for this day for 50 years. Did you really think the outcome would be different?" Admiral closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something fundamental had changed in her expression. "General, I formally surrender the remnants of my fleet to your command. I ask only for mercy for my surviving crews." General Martinez nodded slowly. "Your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. However, this surrender only covers your fleet, Admiral. The Galactic Council itself has committed an act of aggression against humanity. That requires a different kind of response." "What do you mean?" "I mean that this war isn't over, Admiral. It's just beginning." 3 days later, in the secure conference room deep within Cheyenne Mountain, the surviving council leaders faced a reality that would have been unthinkable just a week earlier. They sat across from human negotiators, not as conquerors, but as the conquered. Counselor's compound eyes reflected the harsh lighting as he struggled to comprehend how completely their situation had reversed. "General Martinez, surely some accommodation can be reached. The Council controls 47 star systems. The economic disruption of a prolonged conflict." "Counselor," Martinez interrupted, "let me stop you right there. You seem to be operating under the mistaken impression that you're in a position to negotiate." Admiral, who had been promoted following the fleet action, activated a holographic display. 3 hours after your invasion fleet was destroyed, human reconnaissance vessels arrived at every major Council installation within 50 light-years of Earth. We've been watching your civilization for decades, mapping your infrastructure, learning your weaknesses. The hologram showed detailed intelligence on Council military bases, shipyards, and command centers across multiple star systems. The level of detail was staggering, revealing that humanity's intelligence network had penetrated deep into Council territory without detection. "How?" General X growled, his massive frame trembling with something between rage and fear. "The same way we hid our real capabilities from you," Colonel replied. "Humans are very good at appearing to be something we're not. While you thought you were observing a primitive species, we were actually conducting the most extensive intelligence operation in galactic history." Science Officer La, her gaseous form now a sickly yellow color, spoke up hesitantly. "What are your terms?" General Martinez smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Terms? You misunderstand the situation. This isn't a negotiation. This is us explaining what's going to happen." He stood and began packing around the conference table. "First, the Galactic Council is dissolved, effective immediately. Second, all Council military forces will be decommissioned and their weapons surrendered to human authorities. Third, every world previously under Council control will be given the choice of independence or joining the new Terran Federation. Councillor Santeni twitched frantically. You cannot simply dissolve a government that has existed for 3,000 years. We're not dissolving it, Councillor. You dissolved it the moment you decided to attack Earth. We're simply cleaning up the mess. This is madness, General X rumbled. You cannot control an interstellar empire with a single world. Admiral activated another holographic display. General, you're still thinking in terms of the old paradigm. We're not controlling an empire from a single world. The hologram showed the Sol system, but now it revealed the true scope of human expansion. Hidden installations throughout the system, massive shipyards concealed within asteroids, and most shocking of all, evidence of human presence in star systems the Council had never even heard of. How far? Counselor asked in a whisper. Our furthest permanent installation is approximately 800 light-years from Earth, Admiral replied matter-of-factly. We've been expanding quietly for the past 30 years, establishing hidden colonies and research stations. While you were focused on maintaining control of your 47 systems, we were exploring and settling regions of the galaxy you never even knew existed. Science Officer La processed this information with growing horror. You've been planning this for decades. Longer than that, General Martinez confirmed. The moment we detected the first signals indicating a galactic civilization, humanity made a decision. We would either join that civilization as equals, or we would replace it entirely. You chose which option we pursued. But why? Counselor asked. Why go to such lengths? Why not simply make contact and seek peaceful integration? General Martinez returned to his seat and leaned back, studying the alien leaders. Because we studied your history, Counselor. We learned about the 47 species you've conquered. We reviewed the fates of civilizations that tried to negotiate with the Council. We saw what happened to worlds that attempted peaceful contact. The holographic display changed again, showing historical records from Council expansion campaigns. Images of devastated worlds, enslaved populations, and extinct civilizations filled the air. Every single species that made peaceful contact with the Council was eventually conquered and absorbed, Admiral continued. The Council's definition of civilization required absolute submission to your authority. Independent civilizations were considered threats to be eliminated. So we prepared for war instead, General Martinez concluded. And when you finally found us, we were ready. General X slammed a massive fist on the table. You speak of our conquests, but what you're doing now is exactly the same thing. General Martinez shook his head. No, General, what we're doing is giving every species in the galaxy a choice that the Council never offered: freedom. Colonel activated a new display showing communication channels. As we speak, human representatives are making contact with every world in Council space. We're offering them complete independence, membership in the Terran Federation with full self-governance, or the option to maintain their current status under a reformed government of their own choosing. And if they choose independence, asked Science Officer Law. Then they get it, General Martinez replied simply. No conditions, no restrictions, no tribute payments, complete independence. Counselor's compound eyes widened. That's impossible. Interstellar civilization requires coordination, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, which the Federation will be happy to negotiate on an equal basis with any world that wants them, Admiral said. The key difference is that these will be voluntary agreements between equals, not submission to an imperial authority. The alien leaders sat in stunned silence as they processed the implications. Humanity wasn't just conquering the Council's territory. They were dismantling the entire concept of interstellar empire and replacing it with something unprecedented in galactic history. What about us? Admiral asked quietly. What happens to the Council leadership? General Martinez considered this carefully. That depends on your individual actions during the Council's expansion campaigns. We've been reviewing the historical records. Some of you were architects of genocide. Others were simply following orders. Justice will be rendered accordingly. And the Council species themselves. They'll be offered the same choices as everyone else. Freedom, Federation membership, or self-governance. The hegemony, the crystalline collective, the worlds, they're all welcome to chart their own courses. Science Officer La's gaseous form shimmered. You're dissolving thousands of years of galactic order and replacing it with chaos. We're replacing tyranny with freedom, Colonel corrected. It's not chaos, it's choice. But without central authority, without unified control, the galaxy will fragment into thousands of competing civilizations, Counselor protested. There will be wars, conflicts, territorial disputes. General Martinez nodded. Probably, and those civilizations will have to learn to resolve their differences through negotiation, trade, and diplomacy instead of conquest and subjugation. And if they can't, if some worlds choose aggression over cooperation, Admiral's smile was cold. Then they'll discover why attacking Earth was considered the biggest error in galactic history. The implications of that statement settled over the alien leaders like a heavy blanket. Humanity had just demonstrated the ability to destroy a 300-ship invasion fleet while barely breaking a sweat. The thought of that military capability being turned against other potential aggressors was sobering. You're establishing yourselves as the galaxy's policemen, General X observed. No, General Martinez corrected. We're establishing ourselves as the galaxy's teachers. We're going to show every civilization in this galaxy what humans learned long ago. That cooperation achieves more than conquest, that diversity of thought creates better solutions than enforced uniformity, and that freedom is worth fighting for. 6 months later, the transformation of galactic civilization was well. The Council's vast bureaucracy had been dissolved, its military forces decommissioned, and its former territories were now a patchwork of independent worlds and voluntary Federation members. On the bridge of the Terran Federation flagship Humanity Rising, Admiral reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Some worlds had chosen complete independence and were flourishing. Others had joined the Federation and were contributing their unique perspectives and capabilities to humanity's continuing exploration of the galaxy. A few had chosen a different path. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the system. They're reporting attacks by raiders from the former territory. Admiral nodded. They had been one of the more aggressive Council species, and some of their leadership had decided that the end of the Council meant a return to their old ways of piracy and conquest. They were about to learn differently. Signal the task force. Time to remind everyone why the Council's invasion of Earth was such a bad idea. The Humanity Rising and her escorts jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them a message that was becoming clear throughout the galaxy. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And humanity would enforce that lesson as many times as necessary. Meanwhile, on a dozen worlds throughout former Council space, other species were discovering something remarkable. For the first time they were free to develop their own cultures, pursue their own destinies, and make their own choices about how to live. The Galactic Council had sought to bring order to the galaxy through conquest and control. Humanity had brought something far more powerful, hope. And in research facilities throughout Federation space, human and alien scientists worked side by side, developing technologies and solutions that no single species could have achieved alone. The diversity that the Council had sought to eliminate was proving to be humanity's greatest strength. The universe had indeed witnessed the biggest error in military history. But from that error, something far better than the Galactic Council had emerged. And it was just the beginning.